Hey guys, welcome to a brand new video to the channel, and welcome to our second part of looking into the brand new woodcutting and fletching update to see if there are any money makers still around. So if you haven't seen the previous episode, I'll put it in the corner of the video. We basically went over all the smithing side, so we looked at the brand new smithing arrow tip and the bolts, and basically just had a little brief look at primal smithing again, see what's profit is sort of like lurking around in terms of the bars and the ores as well. Now this video we're going to look more into the fletching side. So the most important thing for us to start with is to go and price check the actual brand new Eternal Magical Log. Now this is coming at a pretty decent price. It's still not anywhere near the price of an old log, which I'm surprised to a point, but that's currently just bought for 6,000 coins as an instant buy and bought at about 5.7 for an instant sell. So yeah, about 5.8, sorry. Now one item I am buying to sort of do this video, which you absolutely do not have to buy, you can use a regular one. I'm going to be using a fungal bowstring. Now you might ask what a fungal bowstring is, and basically it's an item which has come into the game, which is basically stackable bowstrings. So I'm only using this for convenience and laziness sake, but you can definitely still use a standard bowstring. It is absolutely fine, and it will be a bit cheaper than that. I bought mine for 1.2k, and I think the price for normal bowstring now is something like 800 GP-ish. Let's have a look. Yeah, 800 GP. So you're only paying the extra 400 GP sheerly for convenience or laziness, which in my case is definitely about right. So what they've brought in is kind of like the same concept as the smithing rework, where you can continuously upgrade your item to a max level. So I believe in these items now, so if we look at the short bow, we can upgrade it to an MK5, which I imagine is going to be equivalent of a +5 in the smithing realm. Now, in terms of what we can fletch at this current moment in time, we can do the Eternal Magic Box, which I imagine is a nice little decent moneymaker if you can get it, but you do need to sort of upgrade from base all the way up to Eternal Magical Box as well, but your market would probably be limited. One thing we can do though, which we're definitely going to go and price check some stuff on, is the Magical Shafts, which are going to be what you basically use for your primal bolts and your primal arrows. But more importantly is what people need to be able to do this brand new way of fletching and getting the XP for it as well. So in terms of making these arrows, nothing too fancy really, just your standard feathers and the arrows as well to make the arrow shafts. Now one thing I want to check while we're going along is just sort of prices and stuff. So for the 30 magical shafts, we're going to see what price we can get these to sell for, because it'd be interesting to see if you can actually make money just making actual magical shafts, which you can, to be fair. So you can turn your Eternal Magical Log into an Eternal Magical Shaft and probably bring about 3k per log in, which is not horrific because it's actually 50% profit. Now to do this you do need level 100 fletching, which is pretty steep nowadays, even though like your prices of rune dart tips, rune arrow tips have come down a lot in recent times, and I do see these sort of fletching methods being a decent moneymaker for quite a considerable time. Because this is going to be how many people sort of get to 120 now, is going to be with the new fletching arrows and arrow tips. So that's the price of the actual shafts without a feather. So if we sell the feathered shafts, and we'll just sell them for a little bit cheaper, they're going to come in at a price at 14.7k. So really what you probably want to do is, for the sake of buying feathers, is if you are looking to do this for a money making method, is to turn them into the headless shafts as well. Not only that, you can buy the actual shafts and then put a feather on them. I imagine feathers nowadays, even if you're looking at 100 GP each, you're going to be making quite a bit of GP quite quick with this as well. And this is without buffs like the Ranger's Workroom, which will sort of jump on to create extra shafts, extra headless arrow shafts, and all that good stuff as well. But from the absolute basis, turning these into arrow shafts is going to be a pretty decent money making method and quite AFK if you're looking to do that as well. But we can do better than that, so let's delve into the crossbows and the short bows and see what we can do in terms of GP for this. So what I'm going to do is make 6 Eternal Magical Short Bows unstrung, and this is because we're going to go and sort of like test the prices of each stage of it as well. So see what's worthwhile as doing or worthwhile as continuing to do as well. So I'm going to string 5 of them because we're going to sell the unstrung, so whether that's worth doing or not. And then we're going to upgrade these into each step of the way as well. So to start with, we're going to go and sell the unstrung bow. Let's see what this goes for again. So that is not worth us doing because that is going to be considerably less than the actual price of the log. So an actual Eternal Magical Short Bow is also not going to be worth our time because that's going to be considerably less than the actual log price ourselves. Now in terms of upgrading the bows, they're a little bit weird because we need to go and do a fletching workbench. So I'm just going to go and find the fletching workbench now and we'll go to it as well. So luckily for us, in the Rangers workroom, we have the Fletching workbench, which is great because it means we can actually utilize the buffs which you can normally get in this sort of workroom as well. But so what you need to do is actually do this at the workbench and then click onto Fletch afterwards, and then you have a bit of a delay and progress bar on it as well, which is nice to be fair because it does seem to be pretty decent Fletching XP, and it does seem to be like relatively AFK as well. Now what these will do, each step you upgrade your bow will require more and more of the eternal magical logs, which is nice because to make these decent tier of bows, you do require an awful lot of resources, which helps you maintain the price of the magical log as well. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to get all these sorted to the levels I want to sell on the Grand Exchange, and we can also check as well for invention components and stuff like that. But as you can see, in terms of the XP, it's actually pretty solid. To make one of these, it's actually not too bad at all. But I'll finish these, we'll come back, and then we'll go from there in terms of what else we need to check out to see is decent profit. So one thing I have just learned, and I've just wasted quite a bit of time doing, is that you can actually only sell the +5, the Mark 5 version of the Eternal Magic Shortbow, which means that these 3 bows have been a waste of time. But I actually do have a +5 version to sell, so I'm going to get rid of that now. Now this actually costs 63 Eternal Magical Logs, which is the best part of 300k, which actually I can't believe that worked. It actually turns out that that's actually profit. So that actually sold for 620k, which is crazy. Now, if that works like burial armor, which I think it does, the XP is actually amazing. And the XP for actually doing it to a tier 5 was actually really good. So it could be a very solid way for you to train Fletching and AFK as well. Now, one thing I was doing is I was filling my Eternal Magical Wood box, then going to go to the Fletching table. And it just meant that I didn't have to run back and forth to the bank. Yes, you have to take a little bit of while to fill your Eternal Magical box. But once you've done that, you're pretty good for a couple of bows, which I'm just so surprised how good money that was. We pretty much made about 300k for that magical shortbow, which I would probably guess with the time needed, you're going to be making something like 5-6 mil-ish per hour. But for how AFK that was and the kind of Fletching XP I was getting as well, can be a solid way to make some profit all the way up to sort of like get to your Fletching level up. Now, in terms of actually making the Mark 5, we'll go back to the Fletcher's workbench and just go through like XP and stuff like that. Now, the Crossbow is something else I wanted to check out as well. I'm not going to make one because it is quite time intensive. But because it's only a tier 5 you can buy, I thought it was worthwhile having a look into it as well. Now, to do this, you do need to have some primal limbs, but primal limbs really aren't a lot of GP. And this actually seems to be more than the actual shortbow itself. So very interesting to see how good that was. That was 840k. So there is a lot of GP in these Fletching items. Now, you do need the level to do it, obviously. But 840k massively outperforms the shortbow. And depending on if they're like sort of similar materials and stuff, that can be a great way for you to make some profit after like level 100 Fletching. Just to get towards 110. Or just to get to 120, or just to make some profits on the side as well. Now, I wasn't quite expecting it to be actually that good, because while I was doing it, the XP was actually very decent. So here, to make the tier 5, is 27k XP just on its own. And like, going through from sort of like base all the way up, you are looking like very decent XP. So for just the tier 5 and tier 4, it's 40k. It's probably going to be about 50k from like just logs all the way up to the tier 5 bow. In terms of the crossbow, it does seem to be very similar in terms of like what is going to require in terms of logs. It's going to be 63 logs from basically the start of the bow all the way up to the tier 5. So again, very, very good profit there. So you've got all the different options. You've got the short bow, the primal crossbow, and also the primal crossbow offhand as well. Sometimes the offhands do sell better, but in terms of this like Fletching, it's very, very good. Now, you can do the short bows at tier 100, and that's all the way up to tier 5. But the crossbow, you're going to need 103, so slightly higher there as well. The martial as well is going to be another big amount of XP. This is going to be the equivalent of burial armor. It's going to be 27k XP for turning that into basically nothing, but you're going to get a big chunk of XP for it as well. So again, a very AFK way to sort of train. You have a stamina bar very similar to how you do with your smithing, but all you need to do is just re-click on the project and you can just keep going as well. But what I'm going to be doing is actually finishing off these magic short bows for the rest of today. And yeah, get them sold on the Grand Exchange, because that's really, really good profit. And again, Fletching really is one of those, it's so diverse in like all the different ammos and all the different sort of crossbows and stuff. But now we have something which is just absolute crazy XP. The others are good, like Fletching is always good XP for making profit. But now we have something really stand out in terms of the XP as well. But that is going to be the end of this video. Again, this is going to be the end of the money making videos for the woodcutting and fletching update. Very good, and brought some really good methods into the game. I'll probably be doing like a reflecting video like in a couple of months just to see where prices settle. We do this with all the new money making methods and all the different ways to make profit. But for now, it's going to be very good. If you have the levels to do it, I would highly encourage jumping in while it's still around. Because while it's new and fresh, it's probably now the best time to jump in as well. But we're going to be coming with much more money making methods, series and all the stuff for the rest of the year. If you are brand new, please make sure to hit that subscription button. Like the video if you've enjoyed the video as well. And I'll see you guys very soon in the next one.